So about a month ago, Venerable was teaching Shantideva's Guide to a Bodhisattva's Way of Life, and she came to the verse in chapter 8 where the first two lines say, "The wise should not be attached because fear is born from attachment." And this really struck me. And then Venerable Rinchen a few days ago recited the same verse for the motivation. And it related to a sutra quote that I had read in Shantideva's other text, the Training Anthology, in the chapter on the perfection of generosity. And that quote says, "A bodhisattva thinks of everything as belonging to someone else and doesn't own anything. Why? Because ownership is fear." And as I was preparing for this talk, I checked another translation, and instead of ownership, it had attachment. So I was thinking about this relationship between ownership and fear, and the fact that we are often very attached to what we own. So, as you all know, I had been preparing to move to the Abbey, and now I've lived at the Abbey, and I've really been thinking about my relationship with material things through this process. About a year and a half ago, I took a trip, and I left from Spokane, and I drove down to the airport, and the economy parking was closed for some reason. And so I had this brilliant idea that I would drive back to Spokane and I would park in my old neighborhood, which I had parked on this street many times, and then I was going to take a rental car. So I parked on the side of the street in front of a small apartment building, and I saw this man kind of walking down the sidewalk, and I had this thought, oh, maybe he's the landlord. Maybe he's not going to like the fact that I parked in front of his building for, I think I was gone for like 10 days. So I had that, the beginning of worry in my mind. And so I'm driving to Seattle in a rental car, and these thoughts kept coming up. Oh, he's going to put a boot on my car. I know it. I probably should turn around right now and go repark my car at the airport. I should spend the money and do it. But I kept driving. So I kept driving, and I thought, I'm going to get a ticket. I know. Because sometimes there's races that go through that neighborhood, and the cops come through, and they put notices on all the cars that you need to move your car by a certain day. And so maybe I'm going to get a ticket. And that thought kept going. And then I thought, well, it might get towed, actually. But if it gets towed, I'll have no idea where it is, because I'm sure there's multiple towing companies in Spokane. I thought, okay, when I get to Seattle, I have to fly back to Spokane. And I have to repark my car. And so through the 10 days, this thought kept coming up again and again. It was very miserable. And then 10 days later, I come back to Spokane. I take the shuttle to this neighborhood, and I'm walking towards my car. And I think, oh, I'm going to turn the corner, and it's not going to be there. And it was there. There was no ticket, there was no boot, and there was a lot of fear. And so I've been, really thinking about how much suffering comes as a result of clinging so strongly to possessions. When I was thinking of, I was going through my clothes to get rid of things before coming to the Abbey, and there was my suit. And I thought, I can't get rid of my suit because someone might die and I'll need it to go to a funeral. So for a long time, I feared that I would need it. I finally did let it go. But it's not just a relationship with things we own. It's also what we use. And so I've been, thinking about these extremes in terms of the thinking around objects that we use. So there's one extreme where we don't actually care about if the thing breaks, if we ruin it. And I was living in Spokane in an apartment building. It was a pretty old building, and I really didn't care if I kept up the apartment. I wasn't cleaning it very regularly. I thought, wow, this is a real lack of consideration for others. So that's one extreme. The other extreme is being excessively worried about, crashing a car that you're borrowing from someone else. You don't own it, but you still have this excessive worry, almost worse than if you would own it. I thought, I would much prefer to drive my car rather than an Abbey car, thinking that would ease my fear. And so this doesn't mean that we actually have to get rid of all of our things, that we don't own anything, but to think about, what do I actually need to own versus what can I share with others? And then if I do own it, how can I develop a much more realistic attitude towards it? So that even if it breaks, it gets lost, it gets stolen, our mind can remain balanced. And what do I need to do to reduce my attachment to the object? So living at the Abbey, it's been very clear when I've been clinging to things. I had this thought recently when, after some people do my laundry, and the laundry comes back, but my laundry basket did not come back. I thought, where is my laundry basket? I need my laundry basket. I thought, wow. That's a lot of clinging. There was another time where I couldn't find my work boots. And one of the first thoughts was, that guest that just left, he probably stole them. Wow. And then a few days later, I found them in another entrance that I had come in. Yeah, we've done that before, right? And so I've really learned that when I cling so strongly to things, of course there's afflictions, there's fear, there's worry, anxiety, blame. But what I also found is it's much more difficult to give those things. And even more interestingly, I found that it's much more difficult to receive. And so when I can let go, when I can give freely, then I can also receive freely. I can receive without this sense of burden or guilt or thinking I have to do something for the other person. Because I have this worthiness. I'm contributing to this act of giving and receiving. And so, very interestingly, once I've started to really giving clothes, giving other things, then people start giving things. And I find this to be such a much more relaxed attitude towards objects, instead of thinking that I have to hold on to what I own, and I have to, if I receive something, then I have to think about what I can give that would be equal to that. There's this whole transaction thinking that comes about, where if I can simply use things, I can give things, I can receive things, then my mind is so much more relaxed. I don't have the worry, the anxiety, the fear. And I've really seen that to be the beauty of living at the Abbey. It's this, it's what we often talk about, this economy of generosity, where we are able to live here. And of course, we need things to live, and so we use those things. But to be really mindful of how our mind is relating to those objects. And I know that will be one of my main practices, is to really watch my mind. How am I relating to this? Am I clinging? Am I holding too strongly? Or am I really able to let go if it were to break? Or if someone were to accidentally take it home? So I just want to end with some lines about the benefits of giving from an early Mahayana sutra called the Inquiry of Urga. And so these lines read, "What is given no longer needs to be protected. What remains in the house must be protected. What is given is for the destruction of craving. What remains in the house increases craving. What is given is free from fear. What remains in the house is a cause of fear. What is given helps to abandon reactive emotions. What remains in the house increases reactive emotions." So I invite you and everyone to really look at your relationship with these material things that we tend to cling to, and to relax and to let go, and then to also receive from others.